most recent addition to our tools in the workshop has been a Tormek T8. It is a sharpening tool from a Swedish company. This is something that my brother and my dad, who run this workshop, have been looking for a very long time, and I've been looking for it ever since I started butchering here on the farm. You guys might remember this video. These are the slaughtering knives that we have, and I'm gonna sharpen them now. This is something that I'm probably gonna receive lots of comments on because we are not good at this. This is one of the things where it's just very difficult for us to sharpen knives. I know you could practice a lot. We've tried a lot, you know, with stones and everything, and right now we don't even have a proper stone or proper stones to do this. I want to order them. You know, this is a Fiskars sharpener, and I just don't find them to work, you know. I think this is the one that works the best for me at the moment. And so after this video I received a lot of comments, and some people were like, hey, you have to get the Tormek. I have this machine and it's fantastic. And so on our homestead we don't just sharpen knives, we have to sharpen all these tools for carpentry. We have to sharpen the blades for our planers. We have to sharpen the blades for our wood chipper, axes, and lots of other tools. And it has been quite expensive for us to ship these tools off and have them sharpened, or the alternative was to work with dull tools here on the homestead. So for whatever you do, you need sharp tools, and you need them to be very sharp and very equal, the entire edge. Now, some of these tools you can sharpen on fairly cheap things. You can just buy, maybe you can just get a brick and put a towel over it, and then get a knife and a stone, Japanese stone, and sharpen it on there. Maybe you're quite good at that. But as soon as you come to carpentry tools, or tools that are round, or some other things, you can't do that anymore. So we have such a diversity here on the homestead that we really need a machine that can handle all of that. Now, as soon as you talk about knives, knives are maybe, even though it's not easy, but they are easier to sharpen than some other tools. But as soon as you come to a knife like this one, this is a Finnish martini filleting knife. Let me come a little closer. I love martini knives, they're just amazing. We have a few of them, and this is a filleting knife for fish, and it's very bendable, or bendy. I just learned that depending on what kind of English you speak, British or American, you can actually say bendy, and some say bendable. Anyway, this is quite hard to sharpen, because if you work on a stone and you bend this quite easily, then the edge gets unequal, and you won't get the ultimate sharpness out of this knife that you want. Now, when you want to work with fish and you want to fillet the fish, sharpness is of high importance. So I'm going to show you our Tormek, the T8 now. It's not going to be a complete walkthrough through all the features, but I'm just going to show you a couple things and how easy it is to sharpen even this knife. I don't think you can get it any sharper than this, only with more time on this machine, and how easy it is to work with this machine, even though this knife is bendable and quite challenging, to be honest. Now here you have it, the Tormek T8, a good Swedish company that is growing and expanding their market, because they just create a really good product. It actually comes with 7 years warranty, and it'll last you a lifetime if you are smart about it. When my brother went to carpentry school, he worked with a Tormek that they had there in the school, and that thing was a few decades old, I believe, and it worked perfectly. So the T8, I think, is their newest model, and it is for professional use. They have some other models that are made specifically for hunters, specifically for chefs who sharpen their knives in different sizes. The T8 is their biggest machine. These systems, they work with this stone and water, so it's a very slow
sharpening, and this is probably something that many people are wondering. You need something fast to sharpen something, and in fact this system is so great because it is slow, and with water it cools it, that you will not overheat your product, your tool, and it will not break, because overheating it will break the steel and your tool, and you won't be able to get it as sharp anymore. Before I start sharpening, I just want to show you a couple things here on the machine. You have the machine set up here, and the stone spins in one direction. You can change direction. What you do instead is you just turn the machine like this, and so this will give you the opportunity to either sand against the rotation of the stone or with the rotation. Now, depending on the tool you use, you can choose that. Tormek recommends to sand knives against the rotation of the stone. The reason for that being that the stone goes through water and is in water, and when you put your knife against here, the water will go over your blade, which gives you the chance to see if your edge is laying all the way against the stone, or if it's up on one side, if the water goes all the way over your blade. Also, sharpening a knife against the stone, the rotation of the stone, will minimize the burr. I will talk about that in a moment, what that is exactly. And it will also sand off the material quicker. Now, if you work with an axe and it's a bigger surface that touches the stone, it might be too hard for you to hold against it. You don't want to stand here, so they actually recommend to sand with it, so it's going to be pulled against this. If I was going to sand a normal knife here, let's say like my Swiss Army knife that I have in my pocket here, the blade is fairly thick, it's not very bendable, and they've created a jig that is just perfect for that. You can just put it in here, you fasten it, and then here you put it against, you have the right angle. Now this, if I put this knife in here, it'll still bend very much. So once I sharpen, I get to this point, it'll bend up the blade, and the result will not be what I want it to be. So for longer knives, and I use this jig for this knife as well, Tormek has created this jig, which really helps you to sharpen these kind of knives. And you see, you put it in here, fasten it. Now the knife can't go anywhere, it's very sturdy in here. And then once you change this whole thing, you can sharpen your tool here. What we have to do now is choose the angle. Now, one thing that you're probably wondering is, what if you have a knife that's very messed up? You need a lower grit, so you can work off a lot of material to get the damaged surface off. The really good thing, one of the big pluses with the Tormek, is that this stone, you don't have to change it when you go from different grit to a different grit. So this stone has a grit anywhere from 220 to 1000. Now how you achieve that is with this stone that comes with the machine when you purchase it. You see, this is a very rough surface, and this is a very smooth surface. So let's start the stone. We're gonna hire this so it gets in the water here. I have to add a little water. The stone will dry out if it stands for a couple days. If you want a rough surface, you add this to it, and if you hold it against here for, let's say, 20 to 30 seconds, you will actually be able to feel that this stone now is fairly rough, and you have a grit of lowest 220. Now, I've worked with this knife before, with this filleting knife from Martini, so I don't want it to be this, so I'm going to use this, and depending on how long I push this against here, I will now get a finer grit up to 1000. So I want it as fine as I can get it here. Now, they also sell different stones. You can also get a diamond, which you can't adjust. So with the diamond you have several different ones that you can put on, depending on what grit you want. Now, the most important thing with this is that we get the right angle. With this knife, I have an angle of about 45 to 50 degrees. That is the entire angle. When I put my knife against here, it's going to measure half the angle. I'm going to show that to you. Now this tool comes with the Tormek, and here you can see what angle your knife actually has. When you get it and you have never sharpened it, you can actually check that out here. But on a filleting knife, I want the angle to be less. So I'm going to sharpen against the rotation of the stone. Means I'm gonna turn the stone. Gonna put this holder here on this side because I want to sharpen from here. Two things that are super important here is good lighting. I have this little lamp here that I'm gonna put right on my blade, and then paper to wipe off your tool here. So I now want to see the right angle. Now this edge here is very small, so I will put my measuring tool here for the angle on top of the knife. That means I need to use half the angle. If I want the angle for this knife to be 30 degrees, that means I have to adjust this for 15 degrees. Can do that here. I'm actually going to go a little higher, somewhere between 15 and 20. If it's too fine, you know, I'm gonna have to cut through some fish bones. I'm afraid it might break off. And so you put your knife here, then you can put this on the stone and measure it right here. And so I have to go a little higher here. Now this really works well with fine adjustments with this wheel here. Let's turn it on. You see it's spinning. Now this gives me the chance to really just sand the knife very relaxed. Now you see, just by me moving it back and forth, I get the perfect angle over the entire width of the knife. Now I just turn this around. And now, a mistake that I did in the beginning was when I come to this side here, is to kind of do it like that. But what you have to do is actually to just lift it. And you see the machine is spinning slowly. I can see the water that's on the blade here. Let me lift the lamp so you guys can see it. Here you see the water on the blade, and this just really shows me that the entire blade is being sanded off equally. I've worked a lot on this knife already, so I'm very happy with this. And now I just have to take off the burr. Just turn the machine again. Now I know that this is sharp, that I won't have to work more on the stone with it, so I'm gonna actually take it out of the jig. I have a very equal edge over the entire tool. And now I'm gonna take off the burr. Now the burr is, you have to think of it this way. Every time you sand metal, the very tip of the knife, some metal is gonna bend over. So if I sand this side, it's going to bend over this way. If I sand this side, it's going to bend over this way. And that you need to get rid of by really polishing it up real nice. So this leather wheel, if I'm not completely mistaken, it has grit 3000, and with this paste here you can actually make it a bit smoother. Gonna put a little bit of this stuff on here, and I'm really gonna polish this knife up here with this now. now, even though this edge is really nice, I mean, I've worked with the stone with about grit 1000, you can still see where the stone has worked off material. And after this, it's gonna be like a mirror, depending on how long I do this for. And it's really gonna remove this burr from it. Now, that's the big deal. Right now, you know, when I took it off the stone, it wasn't super sharp feeling because the burr was still there. And it is here that you can really spend so much time on this tool. And this is not going to take off too much material, so you don't have to worry about bending the knife. That's why I'm not keeping it in the shape. You can do that. So I'm going to spend some time on this now. I'm going to show you guys how the filleting of the fish is going now after. Hope you enjoyed this video. I'm going to be sharing more from this machine in the future. We'll show you guys how we sharpen these different tools and why this is such a good machine. Reliable, effective, and it just does an outstanding job for our homestead here. But it's really quite sharp already. You could spend a long time on a knife like this.